And Darren, we had that tragic news overnight that 3 Brits, former veterans, were killed by the IDF in Gaza whilst they were delivering aid to starving children. Now, Alicia Kearns from the Tory party and the SNP as a whole are calling for the government to release legal advice that they have been given about potential breaches of humanitarian law by Israel. Why aren't the Labour Party calling for something similar?
Well, the question is, what would you do with that legal advice?
Well, you'd stop selling arms to Israel, presumably.
Well, there's a process internally in Parliament for the scrutiny of arms licenses that Alicia Kearns, who I've worked with over many, many years when I used to chair select committees, and others are able to improve with the government. And the government at this time should make sure that that accountability is done more transparently than it has been done in the past. Alicia is right to raise those concerns. Of course, the question of whether international law has been broken is not a judgment that Parliament can make. It is a judgment that the international court must make and that judges must make on the basis of evidence. I know that when we see horrifying photos coming out of Gaza, in the same way that when we see them coming out of Ukraine or Sudan or other places around the world where there is war, we want to call them out, and of course we can do. But what we can't do as politicians, whether we are from political parties or chairs of select committees or indeed the whole of the House of Commons, is make a legal judgment that has appropriate consequences about whether something is a breach of international law. That has to be done by the appropriate legal system. That's the way in which our democracies work.
But Darren, with respect, you spoke about these horrendous images coming out of Ukraine. We're not providing the Russians with military arms, are we? What exactly has to happen for Keir Starmer? You know, you're the opposition party. Why are you not opposing the government's current stance and calling on them to release this information that Alicia Kearns and the SNP believe has been given to the government to suggest that, yes, Israel is breaking humanitarian law? What exactly needs to happen, especially considering that your leader, Sir Keir Starmer, was a humanitarian lawyer?
Yeah, so Keir Starmer has tried cases in the international courts about breaches of international law. He's probably the most qualified person in the House of Commons to explain how this process works, because he's probably the only person in the House of Commons, I suspect, that's ever done it. I think the question here that you put to me is about the government position. The government position this morning, as Lord Cameron has confirmed, is that we've called for this investigation into what led to this unacceptable incident over the last 48 hours that resulted in British nationals being killed alongside nationals from other countries before the government decides what further action to take. And there's a number of things that the government can do, but the government's asked for the facts to be confirmed and for Israel to work with the UK government and others to answer those questions. And that's the least that families who have been affected.
Darren, just quickly, what can we do to ensure that investigations are carried out independently?
Well, again, that's how it interacts with the international court. There is a process for evidence to be gathered and to be scrutinised independently by judges. But in the very first instance, the Israeli government must explain to the British government what led to the drone strike happening in the circumstances that they did. These vehicles were very clearly marked as being aid convoys. The route that they were taking, I understand, had been pre-notified. I can't understand why this would have happened in the first place, how it could have been described as being a mistake. But you don't
think that in the interim period, the UK should stop selling arms to Israel until the conclusion of that investigation is met?
There's a legal process that has to be followed, both for arms licenses and for the international court. And that's why the facts have to be made clear first. And that should happen very quickly. And we expect the Israeli government to cooperate with us on that basis. And then, of course, it's for the government to set out what further steps it will take at that stage.